It was supposed to be different. Isn't that what we thought? The WNBA, it was supposed to be different. Caitlyn Clark coming in and setting the league ablaze and turning the WNBA into a league of nirvana, where everyone watched it, got intrigued into the league, and got some entertaining basketball outside the NBA season. Isn't that what it was supposed to be like? Isn't that what we wanted? I made a video during March Madness where I spoke in depth on Caitlyn Clark's potential impact on the WNBA and how her superstar presence would affect the league. And I thought, just like a lot of people, that the switch will flip for the WNBA and Caitlyn will finally bring them the attention that they deserve. How naive of me. We're deeply entrenched into the WNBA season, about halfway through what looks to be a historic draft class's rookie season, and from my perspective, it's been an absolute season directly from the pit of hell. Caitlyn had a historic run in college, dazzling fans, shattering records. She was great, so great that off her play alone, she garnered national attention for women's basketball, attention that hadn't been garnered since, well, ever. Selling out stadiums, having celebrities regularly pull up to their games, breaking all sorts of viewership records, and we, of course, we were under the assumption that it would seamlessly transfer to the WNBA, and it did. Kind of. The viewership is there. The WNBA has gotten the attention of people across the US, but the discourse has been filled with toxicity and overall just weird behavior. Let me give you an example.
Caitlyn Clark owns Angel Reese. They watching cause of me too. Well, I can pretty much confirm that they are not. Nobody is spending their free time and hard-earned money watching Angel Reese play ping pong with the backboard. Angel Reese, take notes. This is how you make a layup as a professional basketball player. She traveling almost every play. We'll get a whiff of this. Double-double merchant? No, that's a double dribble merchant. Killian Hayes versus Angel Reese 1v1. She also has 2 blocks all season, which is crazy because Angel Reese getting denied more than a person with a 400 credit score. Caitlyn Clark has 100 turnovers on the season. 99 of them are because her teammates can't catch a pass. She's USA. If you fumble a dime, that should be your turnover on the stat sheet. I agree wholeheartedly. Caitlyn Clark is being targeted. Angel Reese really getting that Ben Simmons treatment in the WNBA. The WNBA is out to get Caitlyn Clark. Yeah, that Rookie of the Year race, that's over now. Watch as Angel Reese plays hot potato with the backboard. And all of her stands will say, but look at all. Caitlyn Clark remains box office and the numbers back it up too. Sunday's match. Angel Reese officially is anti-analytics. The no box out theory is one of the smartest takes in sports history. If you're not familiar with the theory, the take is basically the WNBA is colluding to get Angel Reese more rebounds in order to make the Rookie of the Year race closer. Now, congratulations to Angel Reese for making her very first and second three-pointers in the WNBA. The Caitlyn Clark haters aren't gonna like this one. Against the New York Liberty, Caitlyn Clark becomes the first rookie in WNBA history to notch a triple-double. Even Angel Reese wants to be like Caitlyn Clark.
Yeah. That's a pretty accurate representation of WNBA. The average new WNBA fan, at least the ones who were NBA fans before, came because of Caitlyn Clark. Duh. And I don't know the reasons, although I have my speculation. When watching the WNBA, they literally only care about Caitlyn Clark. And that does a lot of poor things for the league. Initially, I thought, and the assumption would have been, that Caitlyn Clark's resurgence of the WNBA would bring more of a light on the talented women performing and actually get people having genuine conversations about it. But there's a subset of watchers who don't operate like this. You remember the pre-Clark era? What am I kidding? It was only like 2 years ago. Yeah, the era where the WNBA was considered a laughingstock and were fodder for the people who just love shitting on women. Yeah, Caitlyn Clark didn't change that. Those people still exist. They have the same ideals, they just happen to only respect one player. Caitlyn Clark. With that, we have all sorts of weird statements directed toward other players like, I only know her because of Caitlyn, or Caitlyn's better, whenever any other player is mentioned. And that's not the worst of it. Think of any fan base, the worst version, in NBA or in sports. Old heads, bronze sexuals, curry glazers, Caitlyn Clark fans, or at least these variants of them, are worse. Why? Because they don't actually like women's basketball. As I mentioned before, they still operate under the opinion of the pre-CC era. They just happen to only respect her. The result of that is them practically hitting on every single player outside of that and who they happen not to respect. This is made worse when we head to stage 2. We look at extenuating circumstances. Leading up to the draft, there were a plethora of veteran and retired WNBA players that were asked about Caitlyn. And I'm not gonna lie, they didn't say the nicest things about her. I just described the fan base that Clark has, and while the reaction reaction and exclamation that these players were jealous weren't out of line or anything, it did brew a bit of a narrative that will be a prevalent theme throughout the season. People began to whisper that these women were actually jealous of Clark, and this ties back to the idea of how these guys didn't really respect anyone else other than Clark as a player. If they did, they'd realize two things. One, showing up rookies has existed since the beginning of time. Since the implementation of sports, vets in the league has always been desperate to give rookies their quote-unquote welcome to the league moment, and especially when you have someone as hyped as Clark, that's bound to happen. Two, Clark talks an ungodly amount of shit. And that's cool, but people don't take that into account when claiming she's being targeted. Still, these guys paint the image in their mind. They see Caitlyn as a lone gem, a goddess if you will, and the rest of the WNBA as, less. A lot of the WNBA doesn't get the respect we thought they would. We thought Caitlyn would open their eyes to how good the league is, and for some it has. But for a lot, and I mean a lot of others, they stay laser focused on Caitlyn and disregard the others, straight up hating them if they mess with Caitlyn. This hate and dick sucking has made all the discourse exhausting, as genuine discussions is impossible to have. Player after player, instance after instance, the negativity is spread to everyone in the league besides Caitlyn, obviously. But there's one player that has it worse, and truly encapsulates how depraved all the discussion around women's sports has turned into. The disgusting amount of disrespect pushed towards her forms a pit in my stomach. The one and only Angel Reese. Angel Reese has assumed the role of the quote-unquote villain to this story, the opposition to Caitlyn Clark. Their rivalry is dated far back, as Reese even mentioned them competing against each other back in AAU days. The first time this clash was in the public eye though was about 2 years ago in the NCAA championship, where LSU not only won, but Reese talked a good deal of trash on their way there. From then on, they've been pitted against each other. The next season they played each other again. Once more, it was one of the more spoken about matchups throughout the entire tournament. But this time, something different happened. I already mentioned how Caitlyn Clark fans have this toxic tendency to put other players down that may oppose her, and while that's not uncommon for NBA fan bases in general, the amount of hate that Angel Reese started to get was really weird. A thug, ratchet, dumb. All these insults were slapped in her face. She was getting made fun of, insulted all the time, and again, for really no good reason. That was really the start of this quote-unquote Angel Reese hate train. But with the NCAA Women's Tournament leading directly into the WNBA season, there was never close to a chance for this backlash to die down. And so, at this point, she was unfairly and unjustly marked the villain in fans' eyes. For a quick second, I want to switch gears. I want to change perspective and add on the entire dynamic to this debacle, the media angle. In the last video I spoke about women's basketball, I said, quote, there is a concern on if these figures would be marketed properly. That concept, the one I mentioned, to me is still one of the most prevalent themes when we speak about Angel Reese's dynamic within the WNBA fanbase. Remember the entire, quote, WNBA's jealous and targeted Caitlyn Clark standpoint that I spoke about earlier in this video? Well, major sports pages like ESPN and Bleacher Report would hammer hard on it, not only posting and magnifying small interactions between Clark and players, like posting regular screens and fouls, but strategically implementing clips to paint some sort of narrative. And obviously, fans, especially aforementioned Clark ones, took it and ran with it. They think that WNBA players are trying to viciously attack Clark because they hate her, and they're racist when she's not even being fouled that disproportionately much. They just see the narrative constructed by these pages pumping out constant content like this. This all came ahead, no pun intended, when Reese committed a hard foul on Caitlyn Clark. I think you could guess what happened. Yeah, fans came crawling out, berating Reese, calling her a thug and a dirty player for what obviously was an unintentional foul, as she was clearly going for the ball. But what really disappointed me was how the media handled it. Yeah, it was on Bleacher Report and ESPN and all that, even though it was a regular flagrant foul. Whatever. But why is this on CNN? Genuine question. What the fuck is CNN doing covering a flagrant foul? This regular foul, a foul that constantly happens in nearly every basketball game, was getting blown out of proportion and spread to every corner of NBA Twitter. Why? To fuel the fire of this rival narrative between the two of them, which is whatever, but it's obvious that Angel Reese would be treated disgustingly because of this. And surprise, surprise, she was. This toxic nature has been plaguing all WNBA discourse, because actual discussion, talk about this team or that team, has been completely overshadowed by this quote-unquote rivalry. I put quotes around this for multiple reasons. Stay with me. LeBron and Curry, Timmy and Kobe, Lakers and Celtics, LeBron. All of these are fantastic rivalries, better than whatever we got in the WNBA. Why? Because it didn't take over the entire sport. board. Clark and Reese are being pitted against each other, and no matter what Reese does, any woman who has the displeasure of being media manipulated and pitted against Clark will be torn to shreds by a rabid fan base. Think Curry fans and how they ride his meat endlessly. That's what Clark, quote-unquote, fans do whenever anyone besides her pops up, and when they have someone directly opposing Clark like Reese is, they get disgustingly personal and insufferable. The saddest part is that they like each other. Reese and Clark, they are legit friends with each other, but the media weaves this false narrative and stokes the flame to do whatever they can to get the most passionate fan base, Caitlyn Clark fans, the most emotional. The media is ruining the WNBA. They're leaning to hate more than appreciation. They know what they're doing every time they post an Angel Reese clip or a Caitlyn Clark one. They know the type of reaction they're getting. They just don't care. WNBA doesn't feel like a league, where the best player gets the praise, attention, and all of that. It feels like a soap opera hate fest where the media stokes the flames to get the biggest reaction from either fan base. That's not how you grow a league. Not even close. Yeah, sure, in the short term it might work. You might grow, get some viewership here and there, but this line of work is a literal ticking time bomb rigged to blow up. If they don't stop it now, it will be an inferno.